Right, it's a minute past 9. Vinny Perth is with us. Vinny, good morning to you.
Morning, how are we doing?
We had Jean-Philippe Leclerc of L'Equipe on yesterday, and certainly all the analysis in this part of the world and on the TV channels that I was watching in the first half was like, oh, the virus must have really ripped through France because they're so terrible. Like, he didn't think so. He just thought that they got done.
Yeah. So for me, the World Cup final was, I think, first of all, your first reaction was, what a brilliant final. Okay, amazing game of football, had a bit of everything. I know there's this common thread that it took 60, 70, 80 minutes to get going, but it was also underneath it all a brilliant tactical final from two brilliant coaches. It was fascinating. It was an absolutely outstanding game, but also tactically it was outstanding, and it also showed the different mindset of people. And we like to bash England here, so very quickly say the difference between Argentina was they exploited the space behind Mbappe, where England defended the space in front of him. And there you go. That's it. It's about winning a World Cup or not win. Now, the flip side of that is Mbappe still scored 3 goals, 1 penalty, don't get me wrong, but it's about seizing the moment, and that's where the highest level you've got to go and win games of football. So it's pretty easy before the games to work out what teams are going to do to a point. So the natural reaction was Angel Di Maria started the game, came in and was brilliant in the game. Was that what won them the game? Did he catch the French out, and was it the virus? And it was neither of the two of them, although I'm sure they had different parts in it. Like, I checked on Griezmann, who was very quiet in the game, on his stats. They were the same as they have been in terms of his running.
Were
and
they?
Different things. There's nothing that you would say if you were a coach of France looking at stats saying, oh, what happened here?
He's 25% off right now.
Yeah, no. Nothing that would suggest that. So I don't think it was the virus. Like, I think it's fair to say, and again, I'm able to enjoy football, jump off the sofa when that Mbappe equaliser went in. What an amazing piece of stuff. But then, sadly, I sort of analysed the game over the next 24 hours. Right, where was it won? And so don't get me wrong, I lived in the moment and enjoyed it. But France played their typical, when they have the ball, it's 3. Hernandez is really high up, which allows Mbappe come into the sort of pocket. That's how they play, with the pivot of Tchouaméni and Ravelot in midfield. That's fine. That's how they play when they have the ball. Argentina, where they made that slight change was they brought Angel Di Maria into the left wing position, and without the ball they did 4-4-2. And DePaul sort of played on the right hand side of a midfield 3 and broke out into that area. And that's how they played.
So the 4 becomes a 3, or 3 becomes a 4.
Yeah. So effectively, it's a sort of 4-4-2 from Argentina, with Messi and Alvarez working in different positions, and that's fine. But the key to it all was when Argentina had the ball, they went into and something that there's a lot of talk about what did we learn in this World Cup. Has it changed in terms of shapes and systems and different bits and pieces? But Fernandez's position in the pivot, or the number 6 position, nobody has really made a good job of that in the World Cup. Nobody at all, right? But in the World Cup final, Fernandez dropped into between the back 4, different stages. Argentina had a back 3 when they had the ball, okay? But the key to their success was DePaul then went into that area behind Mbappe, and he ran the show from there, okay? And not that in terms of being on the ball he was brilliant or different bits and pieces. It dragged out Ravelot out of a position like, where do I go? And all of these things, what these built up to was people saying France look a half a yard off, where they weren't. They were actually tactically beaten.
Right. So
as a footballer in the middle of a game, or a coach, you're like, how are these getting so much time and space in the ball? Almost because France have a virus.
Yeah.
That was and I understood why a commentator would do that, but it was actually so much more than that. And actually the first 45 minutes of the game, Messi was brilliant again in that same position, where he came in behind where Mbappe had left, and Argentina's right back was that high up the pitch that Hernandez had to mark him, And then on the other side of it, the Di Maria effect meant France had just a flat back four.
Yeah.
And the complete pitch was too big for them. And if you go into it and look at moments where Messi picks the ball up in the half position, in that sort of right midfield role, or the Paul, as I said, they couldn't live with it. And that's where it was just brilliant by Argentina. It got them into the lead, it got them the foothold in the game, and it was sensational.
Would N'Golo Kante have fixed some of that by
Not necessarily, because the running power that was needed, it was a change of shape. France's shape was wrong.
But Rabiot might not have been smart enough to understand this is happening to me and I need to impact. Or Tchouaméni's very inexperienced at that level. He's a very, very good player. Don't get me wrong.
The problem was, the problem is with that is, and this is where you often see players sort of fighting with each other in the middle of games, whether it's in the Phoenix Park, whether it's in a World Cup final. Once Rabiot shifts out, which he had done all tournament to a point, but nobody exploited it that well. England tried to do it with Henderson at times, didn't have the same quality, obviously.
Okay, well, what can you do then?
Well, to be fair to France, and this is where it was a brilliant tactical World Cup, and to be fair to Deschamps, right? What he done was brilliant. He took off 2 players. And people say France didn't get going till 80 minutes. Yeah, I get that. But he took off 2 players in the first half and flipped that straight away. Straight away, he changed his whole team to basically a 4-2-3-1. And why did Griezmann not have a great game? Because he played a large part of his number 10. And it was a change of position for him. He brought on pace in the wide areas in Thuram and
Coman.
Yeah, on the other side. And that then shored up. That allowed then to have the double pivot, as you're saying, with Rabiot and Tchouaméni, which meant the half position for DePaul was gone.
Right.
And the game changed on that. And the whole sort of World Cup or the whole World Cup final then switched. And I know it took France a long time to get back into it. But
they weren't out of it the way they had been.
They weren't out of it. And it was like they had found their feet. Argentina were still... They started the second half, Argentina... Obviously, whatever happened in that dressing room, they were riled up, and that was grand. France seen that sort of first 4 or 5 minutes and then just slowly inched their way into the game. People talk about controlling games, and you can control games now in different ways, with or without the ball.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, the threat of Messi in that second half got less and less and less, and then Argentina reacted, made certain substitutions, and tactically, Deschamps won the battle. To a point.
Were France ill prepared for Angel Di Maria being on the pitch?
No, but that's the point. It wasn't just that. In many ways, that was the centre half up against Di Maria. That could have been an easy match up, but it was the tactical on the other side that actually meant France were forced back, and the players like Griezmann was brilliant in the tournament of turning up in different areas when they needed to go and press. With the front three, done it. But the problem was Argentina's midfield was so spread out with DePaul turning in that area. Like Alexis McAllister was brilliant in the game, in his running power. If you see the second goal, that's not down to necessarily the shape, but that running power. When you've got a midfield of a 1-1-1, as in 1-6, 1-8, 10 to use the football numbers, then it's how do you mark them as a three? So to be fair to Deschamps, he got it and said, we've got to go in and go in after Fernandes, who's controlling the game, and we've got to give Rabiot a bit more space to be able to come out into the DePaul or Messi's position.
Is it just a quibble with the Deschamps won the tactical battle? Is it not that they actually ended up in a stalemate because he lost the start?
Well, like football's all about moments. Sorry,
yeah,
right, okay. He loses the start. Of course you do, because if he'd changed, why change? But you do. I think you do have to change. So
this is a very interesting philosophical bit here, right? Because I think Joe mentioned this last night on the news round about Guardiola getting grief for constantly changing. Maybe it was Mick, I'm not sure. One of the lads mentioned anyway, and. I definitely would frequently have thought, like, look at the quality of my team, I'm Pep Guardiola, we're brilliant, just go for it. But now I'm coming around to...
You have to remember the opposition now, like, I could tell you how France is going to play within an inch of their life, okay? I could tell you before the cup final exactly how they were going to play. It wasn't going to change. But at the same time, Argentina knew that. All their analysts knew that. People knew that. They knew where the space was. I was in here speaking to you about... Poland and France, and if you remember Matty Cash, Matty Cash had so much space. He whipping balls into the box. It was cleared by de Griezmann. All of a sudden, Mbappe scored 10 seconds later. Big moment for him in that game. And I'm saying to you, a better player would exploit that. I thought England, to go back, not to go back to England, but tactically Southgate just got it wrong. He got it wrong. I understand starting Henderson, but the space was in that area behind Mbappe that actually the first team that really exploited them was Argentina.
Yeah.
Where I say Deschamps won the tactical battle is he ultimately lost the game, okay? And this is football, this is fine margins. I'm telling you now, if France had scored that late goal, he would have been a tactical genius when all was said and done by the time we stripped the game back and said the pace he brought on, the two changes, switching to a 4-2-3-1 was something, a world-class management decision that won him the World Cup. And hey, that's football.
But as much as he deserves praise for those decisions, Vinny, like, is there the argument that he made those decisions slightly too late, even though it was still, 40 minutes played where he brings the two lads on?
Oh yeah, like
if you do it 10, 15 minutes earlier.
I remember doing it once, losing 1-0 to UCD, and it doesn't equate to France and Argentina World Cup final. I'll tell you what, when you do it, like, it's a big call, and they've worked all the time on how they play. They've a set way of playing. They know what is needed. Everyone knows that Griezmann knows his job. All of these things, they were just out thought of on the day for such a long period that they had to react. And it was like, it's hindsight. Hindsight is amazing, but it was so close to being amazing performance by Deschamps.
I don't think you can say it's too late though, right? Because there's a one-on-one chance with 123 minutes on the clock where you have like the ball bouncing in the air to a striker who's in form against a goalkeeper who's very tired, and all he's got to do is stick it in the net and you win. So it's not too late.
But it takes the 70 minutes for France to get into the game. Does it? Maybe it takes an hour, maybe 60 minutes to get into the game.
But it actually didn't, Shane. It took 40 minutes, and then all of a sudden the threat of Argentina was a little bit less. Okay, France weren't creating loads, and they've changed their shape of how they played for the whole tournament.
I still felt the
middle of the game.
The first 5 minutes after the second half, or into the second half, you still felt Argentina looked the more dangerous.
And don't get me wrong, I'm sitting there 70 minutes thinking this is going to be a bit of a dab squib of a World Cup final. I'm with you
it's Argentina, and they're
but at the same time, as a coach, you can only slowly they slowly turn this around. And I just struggle to pronounce the French striker's name, but if that goes in, that's why actually the biggest moment of the World Cup was Martinez's save in that moment. And there's an amazing photograph you should have a look at from behind the goal. It is just an amazing save, and it's won them the World Cup, and it's meant that Deschamps is maybe under pressure with certain people in France. I don't know, in terms of he should have won. It was just brilliant. It was tactically brilliant, and it's right on the edge. And hey, that's the football at the highest level.
A question from Colin wondering: do you risk losing the player forever if you whip them off after 40 minutes?
Yes, absolutely. And so now remember, you're taking off Giroud, who may or may not come back, and different. But in that moment, in a World Cup final, you're not thinking of it. That is the biggest concern of any manager or coach standing on the sideline. Taking a guy after 20 minutes, hey, he's a long way back for you. Long way back.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not down to that player's performance. Sometimes it's very much tactical, because
you're actually admitting you made a mistake as a coach, by the way, as well.
Well, that's the way I was saying.
And how you sell that in the dressing room is, I made a mistake here.
That's an ego.
I brought Jamie McGrath on after 20 minutes. Dundalk were struggling. I was only in the job a few weeks, and I just turned and said to assistant manager, "Got to make this. Are you sure?" And basically he was saying what I would have said as assistant. Rory Higgins said to me, "We made the change, beat UCD 2-1. It was a huge moment for me, but I lost the player. That I take off, and it was a long way back for the two of us, because I'd made a mistake." And it's I tell you, it's such a difficult thing what he done in that first half. But
did you address it straight away, or did you wait weeks, or how did you fix it?
The player wasn't there after the game,
right?
Because
and I didn't blame him for that, to be honest. I didn't go in and go, "Oh, you're," like the laziest thing is the coach to go in and go, "Oh, you're fine. You left it." I went, "No, if I was a player, I'd be really hurt by that." I went and met him, had a cup of tea with him, but deep down in his own mind, he's like, you've taken the piss out of me. And that's the way they see it. And you have to understand that. And you have to live in their world.
Is there an alternate universe in where, Dembele had to come off because he was useless, but Giroud just hadn't got into the game yet? Is there an argument, that last chance for Colin Muani, like if that falls to a player like Giroud?
Yeah, there is. And to be fair, but remember, the penalty was won by pace. Sheer pace put onto Mendy and so much pressure. It was a flick on by Mbappe, and pure pace wins them the free kick, or wins the penalty that gets them into the game. So look, there's an argument Giroud, one sub might have been enough in terms of Mbappe's pace and Thuram's pace, but he made a wholesale change, and it almost was the most perfect manager. Like, we talk about managers making big decisions on sidelines, that was huge.
It's funny you talk about the small margins, because we're saying that Southgate got it wrong, and yet if Kane scores that penalty and England have the momentum going into extra time, all of a sudden he's the genius.
Yeah, look, but Shane, that's a bigger argument. The point I make about Southgate getting it wrong is he tried not to lose to France instead of trying to win. Now, the flip side of what I'm saying is Mbappe still scores 3, but you have to, like, I always make the point, and it's someone who's lost his job in football, go, when you sit there, no matter what level you work at, you remember the ones you should have done. It's so easy. Like, it's a bit like people now talking about this World Cup, saying the World Cup was brilliant, and it was, but the easiest thing to do in football is to be a defensive coach. It's easy. If any manager takes over a club, generally they say, "Oh, got to stop conceding goals." No shit, Sherlock, like, and because he knows, he goes in training ground and does a defensive session. The hardest part of football is creating an environment for attacking players. It's the imagination. It's all of these different things, and it's played out like that in the World Cup as well. It's a lot easier to be Morocco than it is to be Brazil in terms of creating chances, scoring goals, and it's so that's where surely Southgate was sitting there going, I should have actually. Okay, the game changed. After 70 minutes, he might have been on a sofa going, do you know, I should have done what Argentina did, and just forgetting the Mbappe part of it to a point, and just went for it.
You talked about the tactical nuances that we've seen across the World Cup, and all those FIFA reports and stuff of little nuggets, and Arsene Wenger's come out saying different things, whether it's goalkeepers being on the ball more or wide players getting on the ball more. Like, what are the big takeaways from this World Cup tactically? Will we look back on this as a turning point in any way in terms of style of football?
I'm conflicted on that, because like, I'm listening to people say, and people I'd really listen to and respect, and say, oh, the ticky-tacky might be gone now and there's no teams pressing and different things. Difference is, you've got to remember, this is international football. You can't just sign someone. So you look at someone like Pep, who fell short in a couple of big games because he probably didn't have a striker. He tried to get Harry Kane, that doesn't work, so he just gets Haaland. You can't do that if you're in charge of Spain, right? So there's you've got to find a way to win with the group of players you have. So I think we have to, in many ways, take this in isolation. But there is definitely going to be learnings for certain coaches in it, in terms of how not to be beaten. Again, it's the very best coaches. Like Jurgen Klopp, Mbappe doesn't press for France. But if Mbappe had signed for Liverpool a year ago, 2 years ago, and he was playing up front with Mane and Salah, he would have bloody pressed. So it's coaches make styles, and club football completely different to World Cup football.
We've got your team in the tournament. It'll be very interesting to see if Mbappe stays. That was one of the conversations we were having. If he just decides that actually having the power at PSG is what he wants, or if he actually wants to go and become the complete footballer, because I'm not sure that he's going to be driven to become the complete footballer at PSG when
but at the same time, the difference with, say, Messi is where someone like Mbappe, if Mbappe had a bad hamstring injury, you're not guaranteed he's ever going to come back to be like, he's world class, and he's probably up there with Haaland as the best, but because he relies on his pace, it's a bit like, I'm not going to get into Ronaldo Messi argument here, right? But peak Ronaldo, I tell you what, it's hard to argue he's not better than Messi. The difference with Messi's career, so he has longevity, as he doesn't necessarily rely on his pace, and I think Mbappe will fall into that over time. It's his pace that is what's brilliant. It's not necessarily His good movement, obviously, etc.
Yeah.
But pace.
So you can't just chalk down that he's going to score 8 goals the next World Cup and 8 goals the World Cup after that and keep going to 35 because,
No.
you know...
Well, you knew Messi was going to do that back in the day. You sort of knew peak Ronaldo as long as he stays fit and he's fitting everyone, you knew there was goals in him. Mbappe...
So does Mbappe's career have a shelf life then? You can't see Mbappe in his 30s
potentially
changing his game.
And that's the difference, I would say, between what Ronaldo did was he changed into a goal scoring machine, a fox in the box or whatever you want to call it. Messi hasn't necessarily changed his game. He's just involved and he more moments than running games. So it will be interesting to see how that one plays out.
All right, OTB AM brought to you live each morning by Gillette Labs for an effortless finish to your day. The team of the tournament, as picked by Vinny Perth, we have Emi Martinez in goals. We have Guardiola and Saiss centre backs. You've got Pervis Estupiñán.
Yeah, that and that's probably the one where how do you pick a left back? The tournament hasn't been full of left backs. What I like about Esteban, he plays with Brighton and he's someone who I think we've started to see the emergence of him in the last 6 months in the Premiership, but also at this tournament outside of Hernandez, France, who had such a poor World Cup final and.
From the very start, where the ball just rolls out under his foot, you're like, uh-oh.
And
aside from the final, he was probably the left back of the
tournament. It's
tournament.
going to be a long night.
Like, we really struggled. Like, if you think about world football and best fullbacks, they're all probably in the England squad, but beyond that, really struggled for good. The guy at Dundee United playing for Australia was excellent, but that shows you if you're looking that deep into a tournament for really good left backs, you're going to struggle.
Let me do the rest of the team here. Achraf Hakimi is your right back. You've got Amrabat and Casemiro in midfield. Griezmann makes the team. Mbappe, Messi and Giroud is your striker. So the ones who didn't make it, McAllister, Bellingham, DePaul, Tchouameni, any of them close?
Yeah, like I think Fernandes at Argentina is really close. I think he was outstanding young player. I think he'll end up in. It looks like there's been talk of Liverpool. Bellingham was up and down. Like he was brilliant at times, but we live in English media world like where.
Can I just ask about Declan Rice?
Yeah, please, because I'm waiting to go on a rant on Declan Rice.
Well, let's have it because. I watched the England-France game and afterwards Declan Rice, what an amazing player. He, single-handedly, it was like a heroic kind of finger in the dike performance. Like, really, was it? Because sometimes when he gets the ball, it comes off his shin a bit and he's reaching for it and all of a sudden the opportunity to slickly move the ball on fast is gone. He's a very good defender, but is he not like a centre-back playing midfield?
Well, yes. The key to it all is that for the big tactical takeout of the World Cup for me is the number 6 position, and there was people in there didn't dictate games. That's why I put Casemiro in. Thought he was excellent. And remember, Brazil went out to a penalty shootout. Van Dijk went out to a penalty shootout. You know, some of the Portuguese stars went out to a penalty shootout where it could have went either way for a lot of stars. This is why the World Cup was brilliant, because we couldn't predict the winner. The only thing that was predictable was semi-final. But on Declan Rice is a perfect example of what held England back. He didn't. He ran around. You want to see his stats? They're through the roof. But he never controlled the game. He never made a passing. Where I slightly disagree with you, France is the first time in my lifetime I've went, right, he is a good player, because he can lose the odd game at West Ham, no pressure. No, it's not even news. It's not headlines. He doesn't play that well. He's never dictated a top game, and he may go on to do that at maybe United, Chelsea. I think there's huge question marks on Declan Rice. I think is Declan Rice as good as Casemiro, Fernandes at 21, really top class number 6s in the world? I'm not sure. Like, you look at Tchouameni, Camavinga, both coming through Real Madrid. Real Madrid ain't getting rid of any of them to sign Declan Rice, but people would tell you he's worth X amount of money. You look at Fernandinho from Manchester City over the years. All these people control games. He don't do the same as that. I think
what impressed you about the France game then? What?
Oh, I just thought it was, to be fair, it was a game where it was sort of a Premiership type style game where clash. He won the battles. I thought Southgate got it wrong. If you're going to play Kyle Walker as that deep line midfielder, then take out Jordan Henderson, who was actually again excellent in the game because of it was a Premiership style game, high intensity, and say, right, we need to be brave here and bring a Mason Mount or a James Maddison, or like the winning of the World Cup for me, for England, was strangely, this is going to sound strange, was Marcus Rashford. I didn't utilise him. Watching that game, Rashford was set up to go and win the game for them, but he had the opportunity to do that. And Declan Rice, Henderson, maybe for an hour, excellent. Kept them in the game, battled away with France's midfield, really strong, really good, but not brilliant on the ball in any way, shape or form. Don't get me wrong. Not like
that's the bit
dictating the game in any way.
The bit like, sorry, I think all the defensive qualities are there, but I just can't see at the moment the bit where he can become an N'Golo Kante, and where, you know, there's a 10-game stretch where you're like, oh, this guy's one of the best players in the world. Yeah. It doesn't seem like the ball skills are there.
No,
I think he's being a bit harsh on Rice. Like Ruud Gullit made the point in the last few days that if Rice doesn't play for West Ham, it helps England. Like he needs to be playing, like West Ham is a top level of football, it's Premier League level, but he needs to be at a top club in order for England to maybe benefit from him more.
But he needs to be at a top club to find out is he actually good enough. Maybe he is, but the point to make it, if West Ham lose their first game back, I don't know who they're playing, let's say they're playing Southampton away, there's no pressure on Declan Rice, there's no criticism of him, there's no none of this stuff. I'll tell you, it's interesting that he hasn't moved to a big club yet. I mean, you can't tell me, Shane, Manchester United,
because he's so loyal, Vinny. We know that Declan Rice is very loyal.
Yeah.
But it's like,
you can't tell me Manchester don't have enough money to buy Declan Rice.
Well, they could have just saved the Calvin Phillips money and stumped in a little bit extra.
The money they're spending on Casemiro is more than what... at 31 years of age, they've gone and spent for a 4 or 5 year deal, like £300,000-400,000 a week.
Yeah.
You can't tell me if they wanted him, they couldn't have got him.
Casemiro's risk-free.
Risk-free?
Well, not really.
I'll tell you what,
well,
I wouldn't like to be the financial controller of Manchester United looking at risk-free. At 25, you're going to be giving this guy £400,000 a week
to do a couple of years.
Yeah, but he's 5 year deal.
Yeah, but I mean, Casemiro has. It took him, albeit a few weeks to bed into the United team. But
we need to get Damien Delaney in to have that one out with you. I won't. But you cannot tell me is risk-free. 33, 34, 35, you're going to pay £500,000 a week for
serial winner. But United have the money, as you say.
No, and yes, and that's the point. Why hasn't he gone for Declan Rice? Well, why hasn't the top clubs gone for him yet?
Why do you think?
Why? I think people aren't sure about him.
I'm not sure about the quality on the ball. I just think that
Southgate's sure about him,
but he's not no choice.
International football, club football, it keeps saying two different things. I mean, there isn't.
Phillips is playing for Man City. He's playing at a top club. Throw him in.
Well, Phillips is injured. It'd be interesting to see if he. It would have been interesting to see if Phillips had played the whole season and got in the City team. Is he ahead of Declan Rice?
Yeah.
Like he might not be, but
I'm sure there's people thinking that's a nonsense argument, Declan Rice. But I think he may have been overhyped. I think he may have been overhyped as a player. And listen, time will tell. I mean, for someone, people don't rate John Stones. I think he's outstanding. But that's just listen. It's about opinions, and we could be all wrong about these things. But Declan Rice has fat to deceive, and like so like let's call a spade. So is this England team, and whether that's down to the bravery of others and different bits and pieces, he's part of that problem. I feel they've been too negative, and it's cost them the World Cup.
Amrabat is probably the prototype of what you need. Like you're talking earlier about the trying not to lose and aiming not to lose a match. Morocco set up so well, like, and I think a lot of teams are going to maybe learn from what their manager has done.
Yeah, I think so.
Gregory was filmed, like he was at, I think, was it a Zoom conference he did with Mikel Arteta, a coaching conference? Like he's someone who like absolutely sleeps and lives the game, and that was quite clear from the Moroccan team, the setup.
Yeah, I think I just think though we all do that now.
Yeah,
so, like I'm sorry, I mean I don't mean like Morocco were brilliant. I enjoyed watching them, but I actually got a little bit bored of them, right? Because it's defensive. It's and like they've won the hearts of so many people in the World Cup, right? Absolutely, and myself included. I know when you listen to the show in the mornings, Kev loved them. Cabana can understand that, but like their manager's not getting the same criticism of other people when he changed the shape in the semi-final and went to a back five, and they cost them. I'm not being critical of Morocco or the coach. I'm just saying it's easier to set up as a defensive coach. It's what his problem is, that if he had to go and win a game, how does he go and win a game? Yeah. And you've got to go and win tournaments. It's a lot easier to do what he done. It will be fascinating if he moves to a bigger club where he's expected to win games. It's a lot harder, and that's the key to it.
Let's talk about Griezmann and Giroud. Why are they in your team?
Well, Griezmann's probably been the player of the tournament, the final aside. He's been outstanding. The way he has played, he has helped this French team in terms of positional sense, his running power, where he's turned up. He has probably been the player of the tournament, without doubt. Well, obviously, Messi lifting the trophy, whatever. He has been outstanding. Turning up. Go back to the game against England, his ball from the left wing, where he just turned up in that position. Just an amazing ball. Wins the game for them in that quarter final. I thought he was outstanding all tournament long. And for me, the best player of the tournament. Giroud is one of them where you're scratching your head going, do I put a Neymar in and have a Paris Saint-Germain front three? Do you put, where is the outstanding centre forward of the World Cup? Alvarez had a decent tournament for his work rate. We were expecting Martinez to be the main man for Argentina. It didn't play out. So who had like Richarlison was very good. I think it's harsh on Brazil players that you sort of look down your nose at them because they went out to a penalty shootout. There hasn't been an outstanding striker. And what Giroud done was he broke the French all-time record, and yeah, he was whipped off early in the final. But over the tournament, he's probably the best striker of the tournament.
Would you leave Griezmann on if you know that the game is going to go as long as it's going to go, and hope that, so you've got as much pace and power as you can get in the team, but you still need a little bit of guile, and there's a combination there?
Yeah, I just think it wasn't his day. You know, it just wasn't his day, and I think as a coach, sometimes you've got to recognise that. And it's easy to say, "Oh, that's strange," taken. And I know we do it with the top players. We leave top players on waiting for the big moment, but I think he got running power into the team. I think that's what he done. If you actually look where Caravinga came on a left back, it's just about fresh legs, about running power. Shows you they didn't have real strength and depth in that position either. And it's just one of them calls. It's no different than, I heard talking about horse racing earlier on. Sometimes the best horses just don't turn up. Sometimes the best athletes just don't turn up, and it wasn't his day.
You called it, I think, the best World Cup of your lifetime when we were just before the quarter-final stage?
Early on, yeah.
Yeah.
The shout. You were proven right in the end anyway.
Or I was going to ask, have you changed your mind?
I've sort of... I have changed my mind, yeah.
You're like with the indie band, and then everybody gets on board. You're like, no, they're no good. They sold out.
Hipster. Yeah, it's one of them. I heard Richie McCormick's argument last night,
and you were like, yeah, actually,
and I love Richie, but he's gone too far to the left. That man, you know, that's that definitely is Bo's influence. But then you can't come. It's somewhere in the middle. Like, there isn't an outstanding team in this World Cup. There isn't an outstanding players in this World Cup. That we've lost a huge amount of the world stars have retired, but it was an amazing World Cup. I mean, we'll go back to Spain and Germany were going out at one stage. It was brilliant that it was only a 10-minute window.
Yeah.
I was like, but it was a World Cup, and I think a few people have made this point. It was a World Cup of brilliant moments, of outstanding moments, and I don't think football-wise it was the best World Cup, but viewing-wise it was probably the best one I've seen.
That's all that matters, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do think that it's hard for a World Cup to be truly brilliant anymore. And even back in the day, I don't remember any of the 82 World Cup at all. I do remember the 86 World Cup. There was loads of bad games, but like they're all blanked because it was Maradona, peak Maradona. So whatever happened, like, it was always great. But I mean, the England group stage games were all shite. Yeah. Northern Ireland 0, Brazil 3. Not a great game, but like, Josimar pings one in from 20 yards.
Lots of World Cup have done. Like,
exactly.
98 was brilliant World Cup, but it's because I remember certain things.
Yeah.
2006 was brilliant. Remember certain things. The Bergkamp goal, you remember that in World Cups. But you remember moments. This one had a lot more moments, I think. I think that's why it probably is But I'm a little bit going, there was a bit of lack of quality at times. Like, not to single a player out. And you look at my team, and you could argue over certain positions. Harry Maguire had a good World Cup. So did Otamendi. Like Otamendi's won a World Cup. And that's where you've got to remember, not one of the top 10 teams in Europe would sign Otamendi. Tomorrow it was free. So it is what it is. It's world football.
Yeah.
It represents your country.
Yeah.
That's why I believe now I've come to the conclusion that your manager should be from your country. That should be a new rule they bring in. End of story.
Just make it a rule.
Yeah, your manager has to have a passport from your own country. To hell with it and make it a proper World Cup.
You're putting yourself forward?
No, we already have one there, to be fair. So, okay.
Right, on that note, really great stuff. Thanks a million.
Thanks very much.